Chancellor Posey had a lot of things on her mind. Accusations of her being clipped Pegasus was not one of them, and her destination shouldn't be either. How long has it been since she descended upon Sweet Apple Acres? She was once a young up-and-coming president advisor, back then praised not just for her beauty, but also for her numerous victories against the Pegasi enclave during her enlistment in the Gaian Air Force. Even now, the party elite continued to praise her in various ways, although outwardly, praising physical beauty in a society of equality was generally frowned upon. Some pony would find a way to compliment on her physical grace in subtle ways. Her personal airship finally touched down on the ground. She and her companion, a deeply hooded pony, stepped down the boarding ramp towards the charred remains of what was left of the trees of Sweet Apple Acres. This time, however, the fire that had been set and subsequently put out was recent. The investigators at the scene briefed her. As expected, it was arson, but no pony knew for sure who was responsible. A list of usual suspects ran through her mind, which was still more than a few after weeding out a longer list of paranoid accusations. She had a feeling that Ace's work had gone awry, but that was also expected. The unexpected shortage of clone soldiers in the homeland had forced her to rely on her subordinates more than usual to enforce order in Gaia. Still, the damage here seemed to be awfully suspicious. She should be walking over landmines, but all of its metal shrapnel had been gathered around the trees and stuck in their branches. It was almost as if some pony dug out each and every mine and threw them all into the air to be detonated. This didn't seem like the work of a lone Pegasus operative. "What do you think?" Posey asked. "Definitely the work of a unicorn," said her hooded companion. "Are you certain?" "I am positive, and I am able to identify which unicorn it is." "Not that would help much, since we don't keep a lot of records on unicorns in general." "Even so, a unicorn is a unicorn, and you should be very careful." "Isn't that why you're here? To protect me from those mutant abominations?" The hooded pony snorted and turned away. Just then both saw flittering in the dusty land and the dead woods a lone pink butterfly. As if entranced, Posey followed it until it settled down to gather nectar from a small wheat flower growing amongst all this destruction. Then in one strike into the ground, Posey obliterated the poor insect with her hoof. She ground it over and over again until the butterfly ceased to be. After just entering the deserted lobby, the alarms wailed, and the doors behind Twilight and Applejack shuddered. The Earth Pony did everything to get it open again, through its electronic panel, to no avail, and aside from forcing it with a lot of brute strength, they were trapped. Yet they weren't. There should already be soldiers attacking them, and unless this was some pony-sick game, the two had landed in the middle of an unrelated crisis. The two, still armed and ready, quietly tip-hoofed about the lobby, minding the suspicious-looking firewood strewn all over floors and furniture. Applejack approached the office room connected to the reception desk. Upon one move in, she gasped, and then she lowered her head in respect. "Applejack, what happened?" "Nothing to see here, Sugar Cube." The curious unicorn wormed her way through Applejack, who vainly blocked the doorway. Here, Twilight saw death. The worker, a young mare of a similar age, lay strewn on the floor surrounded by blood. Close to the nameless pony's mouth was a mouth-operated revolver pistol. The smell of fresh gunpowder indicated that it was recently fired. "Poor mare." "Twy, we gotta get out of here, now." "But we can't go back the way we came." "We ain't staying here, that's for sure. This way." Unable to backtrack to the outside world, Applejack was forced to pass through the broken sanitation chamber before proceeding into the main hallway of Tartarus 01. The glass ceiling had been shattered at various parts of the long corridor. The calls of numerous creatures, known and unknown, echoed across the expansive holding pens up above. The ground floor, hover cart and various scientific equipment had been overturned and thrown all over. The bodies of a few technicians and many clone soldiers lay scattered about, and they exhibited the same deadly injury to the neck as the receptionist back at the room. However, there was no time to ponder as to why the lab was in the state it is in. The slight rattle of firewood on the floor froze the two mares for a brief moment. They exchanged glances, and both knew and confirmed with one another of what was happening. Immediately, as the discarded firewood rattled violently, the two mares sprinted down the main hallway as fast as they could. Not far from behind they heard galloping of wooden claws and the unearthly wolf-like snarls. Their hooves pumped and propelled their bodies at the limit, and their eyes desperately hoped to spot a means of an exit amidst the blurs of their sprint. Suddenly, one of the doors exploded apart in front of them, and a dark blue robotic pony halted Twilight and Applejack's advance. Both mares stood back to back, with Applejack facing the pack of growling timber wolves, and Twilight facing the robotic pony that focused its veering cyclop red eye upon the unicorn. One of the timber wolves lunged at Applejack, but at the same time the large robotic pony leapt over the mares and knocked the wooden beasts away from them. The pack turned their attention at the machine, but their wooden teeth were no match for its metal plating. The robotic pony smashed and smashed, even as the timber wolves continued to reassemble their bodies time after time. "Over here!" cried a voice. From a door further down the hallway, a grey pony with beautifully combed dark mane gestured the two intruders to run to her direction. Trap or not, Applejack and Twilight surmised that would rather deal with her than a pack of ravenous timber wolves or a runaway robotic pony. So they ran with the heat of two remaining timber wolves chasing after them. They jumped in just in time into a dark hallway connecting to what seemed to be an operating room. Underneath the dim lights, they came face to face with the grey mare, apparently a scientist working on the labs, and possibly the only survivor. "Thank the earth help came," said the mare. "You have to help me stop Gizmo, he's gone mad." "We ain't here to help your kind," said Applejack. "We're after the Alicorn thing you guys keep here." "I'm sorry, but I don't know where it is. Even I don't have access to it." "Does this Gizmo fella know?" "He might, since he has access to the lower levels. So, can you tell me what the hay is going on? Why the entire lab is in a mess, as if some mad bull bucked his balls in a fine china shop?" After the three president advisors left, Gizmo started to talking about proving himself to be the smartest pony in all of Gaia. I didn't take it seriously, but then late at night he came on to me with two robot ponies I have never seen before. Before I knew it, all of the creatures in this area had been released. All the guards, clones and technicians were killed, and I'm trapped here all alone. So why should we be concerned about that? This lab was built of an existing laboratory that was built during the before times. We haven't explored the majority of it because of the dangers down there, but we were able to place many ancient creatures under suspended animation. If Gizmo has released those locks, the creatures will rise up and destroy Gaiopolis. Seriously? You expect me to believe all that? The grey mare nodded. "But even if you don't, Gizmo will attempt to kill us three and claim that we were attacked by terrorists." Sure, terrorists. This Alicorn you speak of is located down there as well. If you want to retreat it, you must ensure that the ancient creatures remain in suspended animation and stop Gizmo's madness." "Why are you helping us?" asked Twilight. "I have allowed so much suffering to take place here that this is the least I can do. Avenge them and my cousin." "Wait a sec," said Applejack. "You look familiar. Your cuz happens to be Fiddlesticks, is it?" "Applejack? I heard so much about you. Then it must be Providence that you have come at such a time. I'll do whatever I can do to help you and your unicorn friend." "You know that I'm a unicorn?" asked Twilight. "She can see your horns, Sugar Cube," said Applejack. "You know, Octi, they're gonna execute you for aiding us, and you ain't a fighter like your cuz." "I'll be fine," said Octavia. "Wait," said Twilight. "There's something I must know. A pair of bounty hunters called the Unicorn Hunters said that they captured a unicorn and the soldiers immediately took him to the labs. Do you have a unicorn imprisoned here? Octavia turned her head away. It can't be. I'm sorry, said the doctor. You're lying! We no longer have any unicorns left. The last one died years ago. Octi, growled Applejack, I respect you for not wanting to join in the cause, but if I find out you were responsible for killing Twilight's pa or bro, I'll... He died before I was ever employed here. Then what's his name? I didn't know his name, but the records state he was a blue stallion with 2 crescent-shaped marks as his nature's call. Father. According to records, the unicorn suffered serious brain trauma that rendered him dumb and feral, but a few notes suggest that he was just faking it. For days they tortured him for information about any clues as to where he came from. He eventually died from all the abuses and experiments they put him through. He fought well into the end, Twilight muttered. Pardon? He cast a memory erasure spell on himself to protect our village, a full one to be exact. Dad, what reason you have in being here? What did they do to the body? Asked Applejack. I can only assume that they completely dissected him and stored his parts in the frozen underground storage, replied Octavia. I need proof, said Twilight. I need to see all the records that he was ever here. Sugar Cube, I don't think you should, said Applejack. I need to know. The outburst briefly caused her horn to glow and briefly illuminated the room. Very well, said Octavia. Gizmo and the 3 creatures have yet to cut off the internal network lines, so this computer terminal should still be accessible. I'll show you to it. Octavia led the unicorn into an adjacent office, while Applejack kept a close eye on them and a close ear on the doors. Aside from the screeches of a few flying creatures, it was quiet. No sounds of the robo-pony or the timber wolves could be heard. As for Twilight, Octavia logged in for her after the unicorn insisted on taking over the operation of the computer. Twilight had used similar, if not obsolete, devices back in her secret cave, and had quickly mastered its operation and programming. Combined with magic, she performed feats of hacking that amazed even Octavia, who herself was not much of a computer programmer, but knew enough to get by. The unicorn easily bypassed through all the security firewalls, hunting for all the data that blinked in the screen. Twilight read through the written findings, listened to all of the audio dictations, and then proceeded to watch intently all the video recordings of her father being subjected to all manner of torture and brutal experiments brought upon the Earth Pony scientists. Many of these moving images sickened Octavia, and it forced her to look away. Yet the unicorn's eyes remained glued to the horrors on screen, and after playing the last video of her father, she turned off the machine. There was silence, and then Twilight rose from the padded stool to walk back into the main operating room. She could not bear to even glance at the operating table and their associated tools, for it might be here that they dissected her father. Instead, she sat in the corner in silence. It was obvious to the 2 other mares that she was crying. When I was growing up, said Twilight, I always pictured Daddy as a happy stallion who always made Mother happy, because I have never seen her happy. But now all I have remembered by are those videos. What's worse is that he died on the day I received my Destiny's Glyph. Twi, if we gather all the elements, maybe we can bring your pa back to life. How could you say that? The elements don't work that way. It may have the power of creation itself, but it can never bring back the dead. But maybe it can. Even if it could, can you bear through the pain of losing them again? Will there even be the same pony? This is exactly why Mother is against the use of the elements of creation. So that means it won't bring your family back to life, not in the way you intended. But I lived on that hope for years that could happen. Then what's the point of me inheriting this element? For what? Just so I can be a goddess with none of my family by my side? I don't know, Applejack. You have the element of truth. It has the ability to reveal the truth to all ponies and cut down all falsehoods. It chose you for a reason. A sick reason, perhaps, to cause torment to other ponies. Just like her nature's core, the element of truth had not brought to her anything positive in Applejack's life. Ponies were after its power. The government wanted it, and she barely escaped from her foster home in Manhattan with her life. There, the element of truth lay in its sword form. A beautiful blade with a slight curvature, a handle made from the finest woods and fibers, and a crystal-like orange guard shaped like an apple. Slowly, she gripped the katana with both her front hooves and held it before her face as if in prayer. "Element of truth," she said, "tell me, can the elements of creation revive the dead?" Seconds passed, and the sword's blade briefly glowed. After that, a single tear ran down Applejack's cheek. "What did it say?" Octavia asked. "Element of truth," said Applejack. "Is Twice brother still alive?" The sword glowed brighter and more firmly, and the orange pony suddenly regained her spirits. She set her katana aside and walked on over to wrap her front leg over Twilight. "He's alive, Sugar Cube," she said to her. "That's the honest truth." "Then where is he?" asked Twilight. "The element won't say, but let's not worry about that now. Like you said, your pa fought well into the end. I'm sure you've seen it in all those videos." Twilight had. Even with his memory completely self-erased, he resisted all the tortures and experiments the scientists put him through, despite behaving like a feral creature. "And Octi, there aren't any other unicorns captured after him, are there?" "Not that I know of." "That settles it. Twice brother is out there, and I have a feeling we'll run into him as we find the rest of the elements. If needs be, we'll use the elements to locate him." "You're right," said Twilight as she rose. "I found my father, and I couldn't save him, but at least I know what happened to him. Now I have to find my brother. Or die trying? I won't go that far." "Fair enough. Octo, do you think you can lead us to where they keep the Yellicorn?" "I don't know where exactly it is," said Octavia, "but I can show you the doors that lead to the old catacombs underneath. But you need a special passphrase to get through." "I already changed it," said Twilight. "But the phrase I changed it from left me confused. I mean, is it true that Earth mares are easy?" "Must be either Gizmo or the other techs who made that. However, I'm amazed a unicorn would be able to hack through all these things so easily. Do all your kind can do that?" "Nah," said Applejack. "This is just Twilight. She's been fooling around with our old junk for this very day. Say, do you smell that?" "Smell what?" "Smells like, I don't know, sawdust." "Oh dear heavens, we have to get out." "What's the rush, Octi? Deep Blue had smashed the timber wolves too much. Now they are sand wolves." From the cart next to the operating table, Octavia grabbed a flashlight and showed it on the door leading to the main corridor. To her horror, sawdust began seeping through all the cracks, creating a dry puddle in which the form of a wolf began emerging. The sand wolf lunged forward towards the mares, but Twilight fired a blast of magic in the hopes of disintegrating it further. The sand wolf simply reshaped itself to allow the blast to pass. The mares backed away quickly towards the wall, and Applejack, looking up, had an idea. "Twi!" she cried. "Blast that metal thingy in the ceiling over there." Twilight fired a shot from her horn to that spot in the ceiling that she recognized as a fire sprinkler. Water immediately showered upon the sand wolf before it could attack all three mares, and it then turned into a mud puddle. The threat had been subdued for the time being. More sand began seeping through the door cracks, and there formed morphing piles in the corners, well away from the water. The very sawdust began to navigate their way up through the cracks on the wall. "Is there another way out?" Applejack asked. "Those sand wolves are starting to get smart. We can climb through the ceiling hatch, but it will expose us to the other escaped creatures." Then we make a run for it once we get in. Applejack was the first to escape out of the operating room, gave a swift upward kick on the hatch. She kept her katana in her mouth as Twilight and Octavia climbed out afterwards. Even from here, the massive central chamber, containing rows upon rows of holding pens, remained large, cavernous and chaotic, as birds, bats, insects, and the like screeched noisily in their flight. Then it became silent. All the creatures that had roamed around the whole time had disappeared into the nearest pen, and the three mares stood still and tense. "Why is it quiet now?" asked Applejack. "Don't tell me one of those ancient creatures have been released." "I don't think they haven't," said Twilight. "I concur," said Octavia. "I have a strong feeling that—" Boom! Applejack jumped, and Twilight teleported away to safety, only to turn around to find Octavia frozen on a block of ice. Behind her loomed a giant white and blue equine wraith, exuding nothing but heat-devouring, freezing winds. Each step the icy and wispy wraith took in its march towards Applejack and Twilight froze to the ground. Octavia was still alive, but all she could do was blink and mouth these words from her lips. "Run." The two remaining mares spun around and galloped away from the equine wraith, whose whinny sounded more like a dreadful roar. Whatever magic it used, it fired blasts of jagged ice spikes in an attempt to slow down its prey, so that it could freeze them with its breath. However, Applejack and Twilight barely kept ahead, whether cleaving through the ice obstacles with the element of truth, or by simply blasting it with the concussive force of raw magic. The pursuit led them dangerously close to the end of the long and massive corridor. They might be able to turn safely in time, but the chances of avoiding the freezing breath of the ice wraith were slim to none. At the same time, Twilight noticed a large pipe running vertically against the wall, and there was a pony-sized hatch leading inside. "This way!" Twilight cried. If she had her hunches, this would lead them to safety, relatively speaking. Once they crashed inside, the two mares encountered a long drop to the bottom, and even then the icy wraith continued to gallop after them. Twilight was forced to unleash a fiery exploding spell. She and Applejack swatted away from them all the falling fire debris, and while they stopped the ice wraith from pursuing them, they were still falling. I hope you know where we're falling," cried Applejack. To reassure her earth pony companion, Twilight enveloped her and herself in a magenta aura, and their descent rate slowed considerably. "I think I know," grunted Twilight. "Don't think too hard, or else you might slip up, end up as pony pancakes on the bottom." Contrary to what non-unicorns think, the use of magic was an exhausting affair, as if they used an invisible muscle designed to manipulate the ether. It might appear the simple levitation spell was easy, but Applejack clearly saw Twilight forcing herself to stay in focus. Hours had passed, and aside a few sudden drops that they recovered quickly from, the unicorn showed signs of tiredness. Certainly the use of magic was limited. After Twilight's duel against her mother and the counterattack against the unicorn hunters, she was practically pooped for several hours. In this situation, Twilight could not afford to be tired, but she could not do anything to extend her power duration. Eventually, they touched down what they thought was the bottom. Twilight had released her spell, and she and Applejack found themselves sliding down an incline for almost a minute before crashing through another grate. From where they were, the two fell high and hard, but the impact was not enough to break any bones. In the complete darkness, Twilight emitted a glow from her horn. Aside from the rocky wall from where they came from, she could not see anything past 100 feet in front of her. Wherever they landed, it was big, perhaps bigger than the corridor containing the holding pens for the smaller creatures. "If I remember correctly," said Twilight, "I think this is where they keep their dragons."